Queen Zara ruled over the planet Velfera with wisdom that came from centuries of experience. Her people were different from humans in many ways. They had blue skin that glowed softly in the dark, tall, graceful bodies, and minds that could connect with each other without speaking a single word. The Veltherans were proud of how advanced they had become over thousands of years. In their world, creating new life was a simple process. Two beings would sit across from each other, close their eyes, and share their thoughts and energy. Within moments, a new spark of life would begin. It was clean, efficient, and completely logical. There was no mess, no confusion, and certainly no strange physical feelings that some primitive species supposedly experienced. Dr. Keth sat in the royal chamber, holding a thick file of research papers. He had been studying other species across the galaxy for decades, and today she had something particularly amusing to share with her queen. The file contained reports about a species called humans who lived on a small blue planet called Earth. "Your Majesty," Dr. Keth said with a slight smile, "our research team has discovered something quite entertaining about these humans. They claim to experience something they call intense physical pleasure during their reproduction process. They even have a special word for the peak of this supposed experience." Queen Zara raised one elegant eyebrow. Her people had studied hundreds of species, and she had never heard of anything so ridiculous. It's physical pleasure during reproduction? That sounds completely made up. How can any intelligent species believe such nonsense? Dr. Keth opened the file and began reading from her notes. "According to our observations, humans spend enormous amounts of time and energy pursuing these physical sensations. They write songs about it, create art about it, and even base major life decisions around it. Our scientists believe they are simply exaggerating normal biological processes to make themselves feel more important." The queen walked to the large window that overlooked her crystal city. The buildings sparkled in the light of their twin suns, and everything looked perfectly organized and peaceful. This was what a truly advanced civilization looked like, she thought. Not some chaotic world where beings were controlled by strange physical urges. Have our xenobiologists confirmed that this is impossible? Queen Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. "Absolutely, Your Majesty. Our top scientists have studied the biological reports extensively. While humans do have more nerve endings in certain areas than we do, the idea that this could create the intense experiences they describe as scientifically unsound. Any species that evolved properly would have moved beyond such primitive responses." Queen Zara nodded with satisfaction. Her people had evolved beyond the need for such crude physical experiences. They had developed something far more beautiful and meaningful, the ability to share minds and create life through pure thought and energy. It was elegant, sophisticated, and completely logical. Dr. Keth continued reading from her research. The humans also claim that these physical experiences create deep emotional bonds between partners. They say it makes them feel connected in ways that go beyond simple companionship. Our psychologists believe this is just their way of justifying their primitive urges. "Of course it is," the queen replied. "True connection comes from sharing thoughts and understanding each other's minds. These humans are probably just confused about what real intimacy means. They mistake physical sensations for emotional depth because they haven't learned how to truly connect with each other." The royal science advisor pulled out another document. "There's more, Your Majesty. We intercepted some of their communications about relationships. The things they describe are so exaggerated that they sound like fantasy stories. They talk about their hearts racing, feeling dizzy, and experiencing waves of sensation that supposedly last for several minutes." Queen Zara laughed softly. "Several minutes? That's clearly impossible. Even if such sensations existed, no biological system could sustain that kind of response for so long. They're obviously making these stories up to impress each other." Dr. Keth nodded in agreement. "That's exactly what our team concluded. We think humans create these elaborate stories because their actual reproduction process is probably quite boring and quick. They compensate by inventing these mythical experiences to make themselves feel special." The queen returned to her throne, feeling pleased with her people's superior understanding of biology. "This is exactly why we are the most advanced species in this sector of the galaxy. don't waste time chasing after imaginary pleasures or creating false stories about our experiences. We deal with reality. Do we continue studying human reproduction, Your Majesty? Dr. Keth asked. Queen Zara waved her hand dismissively. Focus on more important aspects of their biology. Their cardiovascular system might be interesting, and their brain structure could provide useful insights. But don't waste any more time on these ridiculous pleasure myths. We have real science to pursue. As Dr. Keth gathered her papers and prepared to leave, Queen Zara felt satisfied that her people had once again proven their superiority. While primitive species like humans were distracted by impossible fantasies, the Veltherans focused on truth, logic, and genuine advancement. The Queen spent the rest of the day reviewing reports from other planets, confident that her understanding of the universe was complete and accurate. She had no idea that everything she believed about human biology was about to be challenged in the most unexpected way possible. That evening, as she prepared for her nightly meditation, Queen Zara reflected on how fortunate her people were to have evolved beyond such primitive concerns. They had achieved something far more meaningful than any physical sensation could provide. They had created a society based on pure logic, genuine connection, scientific truth. Little did she know that within just a few days, everything she thought she knew about connection, pleasure, and what it meant to be truly alive would be completely transformed by an encounter that would change not just her own life, but the entire future of her species. 3 weeks later, Queen Zara stood in the grand reception hall of her palace, waiting for something that had never happened before in her lifetime. A human was coming to visit her planet. The first human to ever set foot on Velthera Prime. She had agreed to this meeting only because her council insisted it would be good for diplomatic relations across the galaxy. The Queen wore her finest ceremonial robes, made from shimmering fabric that changed colors with her mood. Today it glowed, a cool blue, reflecting her calm and somewhat curious state of mind. She had spent the morning reviewing everything her scientists knew about humans, which wasn't much beyond their basic biology and their strange stories about physical pleasure that she still found hard to believe. Captain, David Chen stepped through the transport chamber, and Queen Zara got her first real look at a human being. He was taller than she had expected, with kind brown eyes and an easy smile that seemed genuine. His skin was a warm golden color, and his dark hair was neatly combed back. What struck her most was how he moved with confidence, but also a gentleness that she hadn't expected from what her people considered a primitive species. Your Majesty, David said, bowing respectfully in the way that human diplomats had taught him was appropriate for meeting alien royalty. I am honored to be here, thank you for allowing me to visit your beautiful world. Queen Zara nodded graciously. Welcome to Velthora Prime, Captain Chen. I hope your journey was comfortable. Our scientists are very curious about your species. As they walked through the palace halls, David looked around with wonder at the crystal architecture and the soft glowing lights that seemed to come from the walls themselves. This is incredible, he said. Your people have created something truly beautiful here. The harmony between technology and nature is amazing. The Queen felt a small spark of pride at his words. Most species they encountered were either too primitive to appreciate Veltheran's art or too advanced to care about beauty. But David seemed genuinely moved by what he saw. They settled in the royal garden, where exotic plants from across the galaxy grew in perfect harmony. David accepted the offered refreshments and began to share stories about Earth and human civilization. What surprised Queen Zara was how passionately he spoke about everything from human art to their scientific discoveries to their relationships with each other. On Earth, David said, his eyes lighting up, we have something called music that brings people together in ways that are hard to explain. When humans hear a beautiful song, they feel connected not just to the music, but to each other. It creates this shared emotional experience that can make strangers feel like family. Queen Zara listened with growing interest. Her people had sound, patterns that were pleasant to hear, but nothing that created the kind of emotional response David was describing. How does sound create emotional connection? She asked. David smiled and pulled out a small device. Would you like to hear some? I brought some examples of human music that I thought might translate well to other species. The soft melody that filled the garden was unlike anything Queen Zara had ever heard. It started slowly, building in complexity and emotion until she found herself feeling something she couldn't quite name. The music seemed to touch something deep inside her, creating a warmth that had nothing to do with the temperature of the air. "How does it make you feel?" David asked gently. I'm not sure," Queen Zara admitted. "It's strange. The sound patterns seem to be affecting my emotional center in ways I don't understand. Our music is mathematical and precise, but this creates feelings that seem to come from nowhere." David nodded with understanding. That's exactly what human music is meant to do. It's not just about the technical aspects of sound. It's about creating an emotional journey that connects the listener to something deeper than just the notes themselves. As the day continued, David shared more aspects of human culture. He talked about human art that expressed love and longing, about literature that explored the depths of human emotion, and about the way humans formed deep bonds with each other that went beyond simple companionship. "You mentioned that humans experience intense physical sensations during reproduction," Queen Zara said carefully, remembering her conversation with Dr. Keth. "Our scientists believe these stories are exaggerated." David's expression became thoughtful. "I can understand why that might seem impossible to your people. But for humans, physical intimacy is just one part of a much larger experience of connection. It's not just about the physical sensations, though those are real and important. It's about sharing vulnerability, trust, and deep emotional bonding with another person." "But how can physical sensations create emotional bonds?" Queen Zara asked. "That seems scientifically impossible," David said, choosing his words carefully. "Imagine if the music you just heard could be felt throughout your entire body, not just heard with your ears. Imagine if it could create a shared experience with someone you cared about, where you both felt the same beautiful sensations at the same time. It's closer to what human intimacy is like." Queen Zara found herself thinking about this comparison long after David had returned to his guest quarters. The music had affected her in ways she couldn't explain scientifically. Could it be possible that humans experience something similar, but stronger during their intimate moments? Over the following days, David continued to share human culture. With the queen and her court, he showed them human paintings that captured emotions in color and form, read them poetry that spoke of love and connection, and explained how humans used physical touch to comfort and support each other. Each conversation left Queen Zara more curious about human experience. David spoke with such genuine emotion about these connections that it became harder to dismiss them as primitive fantasies. There was something in his voice, in the way his eyes lit up when he talked about love and connection, that suggested he was describing something real and meaningful. "Your people seem to experience life very differently than we do," Queen Zara observed during one of their garden walks. "Different doesn't mean wrong," David replied gently. "Your people have achieved incredible things through mental connection and logical thinking. But humans have found meaning through emotional and physical connection as well. Maybe both approaches have value." For the first time in her long life, Queen Zara began to wonder if her people's scientific certainty might be missing something important about the nature of connection and what it meant to be truly alive. Over the next few weeks, Queen Zara found herself looking forward to her daily meetings with David more than she had expected. What started as formal diplomatic discussions had gradually become something much more personal and meaningful. Conversation revealed new layers of human experience that challenged everything she thought she knew about life and connection. David had set up a small cultural exchange center in one of the palace wings where he displayed various examples of human art, literature, and music. Queen Zara visited this space every morning, drawn by curiosity that grew stronger each day. Today she found David standing in front of a collection of paintings that showed couples in various poses of affection and connection. "These are beautiful," Queen Zara said, studying the artwork carefully. "But I noticed that many of your artists focus on physical closeness between people. Why is touch so important to humans?" David smiled warmly. "For humans, touch is one of the primary ways we communicate care and affection. A gentle touch on the hand can say, 'I understand your pain.' A warm hug can communicate you are not alone. An intimate touch between partners can express love in ways that words sometimes cannot. Queen Zara moved closer to examine a painting that showed two figures embracing under a starlit sky. The artist had captured something in their expressions that made her feel a strange longing she couldn't quite identify. Share thoughts and emotions directly through mental connection. We don't need physical touch to communicate. That sounds incredibly efficient, David replied. But maybe efficiency isn't the only goal? Sometimes the journey is as important as the destination. When humans touch each other, it's not just about communicating information. It's about creating a shared moment of connection that both people can experience together. As days passed, David continued to share different aspects of human culture. He introduced Queen Zara to human poetry that spoke of love and longing in ways that made her heart race. He played music that told stories of romance and connection, causing emotions to rise within her that she had never felt before. One afternoon, David brought out a collection of human love letters written throughout history. These are messages that humans have written to express their deepest feelings for each other, he explained. They show how humans use words to create emotional intimacy. Queen Zara read several of the letters, fascinated by the passionate language and emotional depth. These writers described physical sensations alongside their emotional feelings, she observed. They talk about their hearts racing, feeling breathless, and experiencing warmth spreading through their bodies. Those are all real physical responses that humans experience when they feel strong emotions, David confirmed. Love and attraction aren't just mental experiences for humans. They involve the entire body and create sensations that can be incredibly powerful. The Queen found herself thinking about these conversations long into the night. During her evening meditations, she wondered what it would feel like to experience such intense physical and emotional responses. Her people's way of connecting was beautiful and efficient. But was it possible they had lost something important in their evolution toward pure mental connection? David noticed her growing curiosity and began to share more personal stories about human relationships. He told her about childhood friends who had supported each other through difficult times, about family bonds that remained strong across great distances, and about romantic partnerships that combined emotional, mental, and physical connection into something greater than the sum of its parts. You speak about these relationships with such passion, Queen Zara observed during one of their garden walks. It's clear that these connections bring great meaning to your life. They do, David agreed. Humans are social creatures who thrive on connection with others. We're not meant to exist in isolation. Our relationships shape who we are and give our lives purpose and joy. Queen Zara found herself opening up to David in ways that surprised her. She told him about the loneliness she sometimes felt despite being surrounded by her people. She described how her royal duties often kept her at a distance from others, and how she had always accepted this as necessary for effective leadership. Leadership doesn't have to mean isolation, David suggested gently. Out on earth are most effective. Leaders are often those who maintain strong personal connections with others. These relationships don't weaken them. They provide strength and perspective that make them better leaders. During their conversations, David also learned about Veltheron's culture. He was fascinated by their ability to share thoughts directly, and their advanced understanding of mental connection. Your people have achieved something remarkable, he told Queen Zara. The ability to truly understand each other's thoughts must create incredible harmony. It does, Queen Zara agreed. But sometimes I wonder if we've become too focused on the mind and forgotten about other aspects of existence. Your people seem to experience life more fully, engaging not just your thoughts, but your emotions and physical senses as well. It nodded thoughtfully. Maybe both approaches have value. Mental connection and physical connection don't have to be opposing forces. They could complement each other to create something even more meaningful. As the weeks passed, Queen Zara noticed changes in herself that she couldn't quite explain. She found herself more aware of physical sensations, the warmth of sunlight on her skin, the gentle breeze in the garden, the way her heart beat faster when David smiled at her. These were things she had never paid attention to before, but now they seemed important and meaningful. She also began to understand that David's descriptions of human intimacy weren't about primitive urges or exaggerated stories. They were about a different way of experiencing connection that involved the whole person, mind, heart, and body, working together to create something beautiful and meaningful. One evening, as they watched the twin suns set over the crystal city, Queen Zara felt a longing she had never experienced before. It wasn't just curiosity about human culture anymore. It was a deep desire to understand what it might feel like to connect with another being in the complete and integrated way that David had described. She realized that her people's dismissal of human experiences as primitive had been based on fear rather than understanding. Fear of losing control. Fear of experiencing something beyond their ability to analyze and categorize. Fear of discovering that their way of living might not be the only path to fulfillment and meaning. For the first time in her long life, Queen Zara began to wonder if true evolution might involve embracing all aspects of existence rather than transcending them. Queen Zara had been restless all day. Something was changing inside her, and she couldn't quite understand what it was. For weeks now, her conversations with David had been opening doors in her mind that she never knew existed. Tonight, she found herself walking through the palace gardens under the soft glow of Valthera's twin moons, hoping the peaceful surroundings would help calm her racing thoughts. The garden was her favorite place in the entire palace. Exotic flowers from across the galaxy bloomed in perfect harmony, their gentle fragrances mixing with the cool evening air. The crystal pathways sparkled in the moonlight, creating a magical atmosphere that had always brought her peace. But tonight, even this beautiful sanctuary couldn't quiet the strange new feelings that had been growing stronger each day. She found David sitting on a bench near the fountain, looking up at the stars. He seemed lost in thought, and for a moment she hesitated, not wanting to disturb him, but something drew her forward, and she approached slowly. "You seem troubled," Queen Zara said softly, settling beside him on the bench. David turned to her with that gentle smile that had become so familiar. "Not troubled, exactly. It's just thinking about how different our worlds are, yet how much we have in common. I've learned so much from you and your people these past weeks." "And I from you," Queen Zara replied, surprised by how easily the words came. "You've shown me that there are ways of experiencing life that my people have forgotten, or perhaps never knew." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the soft bubbling of the fountain and the distant sounds of the night creatures that lived in the garden. Queen Zara found herself very aware of David's presence beside her. The warmth radiating from his body, the gentle rise and fall of his breathing, the way he occasionally glanced at her with those kind eyes. "David," she said finally, "I need to ask you something that's been on my mind for days now." "Of course," he replied, turning to face her fully. "When you describe human connections, especially the deep bonds between partners, you talk about feelings and sensations that seem impossible to my people. But the way you speak about them, with such genuine emotion, makes me believe they're real. I'm beginning to think that what we dismissed as mythology might actually be something we've lost in our evolution." David nodded thoughtfully. "I think your people evolved in a different direction than humans did. You developed incredible mental abilities, but maybe in doing so, you moved away from other types of connection. Neither path is wrong, but they lead to different experiences of what it means to be alive." Queen Zara felt a wave of sadness wash over her. "Do you think it's possible for someone like me to understand these experiences you describe? Or have my people evolved too far beyond them?" "I think," David said gently, "that the capacity for connection exists in all conscious beings. Might be expressed differently, but the fundamental desire to bond with another soul is universal." Something in his voice made Queen Zara look at him more closely. In the moonlight, his face was soft and kind. But there was something else there too, a warmth in his eyes that she had never seen before. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand, the moment their skin made contact. Queen Zara felt something extraordinary happen. It was like a spark of electricity that traveled from her fingertips up through her entire body. Her heart began to beat faster. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the temperature of the air. "Oh," she whispered, staring at their joined hands in wonder. David looked at her with gentle understanding. "You feel it too, don't you?" Queen Zara nodded, unable to find words for what was happening to her. The simple touch of David's hand was creating sensations and emotions that her advanced mind couldn't analyze or categorize. It was like experiencing a completely new dimension of existence. "This is what you meant," she said softly, "when you talked about physical connection, creating emotional bonds. I can feel it happening." David's thumb gently stroked across her knuckles, and Queen Zara gasped at the intensity of the sensation. "Physical touch can be a form of communication that goes beyond words or even thoughts," he explained. "It's about sharing presence, energy, and emotion in a direct way." Queen Zara felt tears forming in her eyes, though she wasn't sure why. "My people have been so wrong about human experiences. We thought we were advanced because we could share thoughts, but we missed something fundamental about what it means to truly connect with another being." David moved closer to her on the bench, and Queen Zara felt her awareness heighten in ways she had never experienced. She could smell his subtle scent, feel the warmth radiating from his body, and sense the gentle energy that seemed to surround him. "May I?" David asked softly, raising his free hand toward her face. Queen Zara nodded, not trusting her voice. When David's fingertips gently touched her cheek, she felt like her entire world shifted. The sensation was so intense, so overwhelming, that she couldn't believe her people had dismissed such experiences as impossible. "This is incredible," she whispered. "I had no idea that physical touch could create such profound feelings." David smiled and leaned closer. "There's more," he said quietly. "If you're willing to explore it." Queen Zara looked into his eyes and saw not just kindness, but something deeper, a connection that went beyond their differences as species, beyond their different worlds and cultures. She saw genuine care and affection that made her heart race even faster. "I want to understand," she said. "I want to experience what you've been trying to show me." David's face moved closer to hers, and Queen Zara felt anticipation building in her body like nothing she had ever experienced. When his lips gently touched hers, the world around them seemed to disappear completely. The kiss was soft and tender, but it created an explosion of sensation throughout Queen Zara's entire being. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure David could hear it. Warmth flooded through her body, and she felt dizzy with the intensity of emotions she couldn't name. When they finally parted, Queen Zara stared at David in amazement. "Now I understand," she said breathlessly. "The stories, the poetry, the music, it was all describing something real, something beautiful and powerful that my people have forgotten how to experience." David nodded, his own breathing slightly uneven. "And this is just the beginning," he said. "What you just experienced is what humans call the foundation of deeper connection. The physical sensations you felt are real, but they're also connected to emotional and spiritual bonds that can grow stronger over time." Queen Zara felt a profound shift happening within her. Everything she had believed about evolution, about advancement, about what it meant to be a superior species, was being transformed by this simple but extraordinary experience. "My people need to know about this," she said. "We've been so focused on transcending physical existence that we've lost touch with an essential part of what it means to be alive." David took her hand again, and Queen Zara marveled at how such a simple gesture could create such complex feelings. "Change takes time," he said, "but understanding is the first step toward growth." As they sat together in the moonlit garden, Queen Zara realized that her journey of discovery was just beginning. The kiss had opened a door to experiences she had never imagined possible, and she was eager to explore what lay beyond. The morning after her first kiss with David, Queen Zara stood before the great mirror in her chambers, hardly recognizing the being staring back at her. Her usually composed expression was replaced by something softer, more alive. Her skin seemed to glow with an inner light she had never noticed before, and her eyes held a warmth that came from somewhere deep inside. For the first time in her centuries of life, Queen Zara understood what it meant to feel truly awakened. The kiss had opened something within her that she didn't even know existed. Every sensation felt more vivid, every emotion more intense. She could still feel the lingering warmth where David's lips had touched hers, and the memory sent pleasant shivers through her entire body, But with this new understanding came a heavy responsibility. As the leader of her people, she couldn't keep this discovery to herself. The Veltherans had spent thousands of years believing they had achieved the highest form of evolution. But Queen Zara now knew they had been missing something fundamental. About what it meant to be alive, Dr. Keth arrived for their morning meeting, carrying her usual stack of scientific reports.
Wow.
But today, Queen Zara had something much more important to discuss than routine research updates. Dr. Keth, Queen Zara began, her voice carrying a new tone of certainty. I need you to gather the Royal Council immediately. We have important matters to discuss regarding our understanding of human biology and relationships. Double quotes, Dr. Keth looked puzzled. Has Captain Chen provided new information about their species, Your Majesty? In a way, yes, Queen Zara replied with a small smile. But more importantly, I have gained new insights that will change how we approach our relationships with other species, and perhaps even with each other. Within an hour, the Royal Council had assembled in the Great Chamber. The room was filled with Velthera's most brilliant minds, scientists, philosophers, and cultural advisors who had guided their civilization for generations. Queen Zara stood before them, knowing that what she was about to share would challenge everything they believed about their own superiority. My fellow Veltherans, Queen Zara began, her voice strong and clear. For too long we have dismissed the experiences of other species as primitive or impossible. We have been especially critical of human claims about physical and emotional connection. Today I stand before you to tell you that we have been wrong. A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Dr. Keth leaned forward in her seat. Clearly confused by this unexpected announcement, Queen Zara continued. Through my cultural exchanges with Captain Chen, I have discovered that what we dismissed as mythology is actually a profound form of connection that we have lost in our evolution. The physical sensations that humans describe are not only real, but are part of a beautiful and meaningful way of bonding with another being. Dr. Keth stood up, her scientific mind struggling to accept this revelation. Your Majesty, surely you're not suggesting that our research has been incorrect? We have studied human biology extensively and found no evidence to support their claims. Dr. Keth, Queen Zara replied patiently. Sometimes the most important discoveries cannot be made through observation alone. They require personal experience and an open mind. I have experienced what humans call physical connection, and I can tell you that it creates sensations and emotions that are both real and profound. The chamber fell silent as the implications of the Queen's words sank in. She was not just sharing scientific observations. She was describing a personal transformation that challenged their entire understanding of advanced civilization. What does this mean for our people? Asked Dr. Thane, the chief philosopher of the council. Queen Zara took a deep breath before answering. It means that true evolution is not about transcending all aspects of physical existence. It's about integrating all parts of ourselves, mental, emotional, and physical, into a complete experience of what it means to be alive. We have become incredibly advanced in mental connection, but we have forgotten how to connect with our whole being. Over the following days, Queen Zara worked with David to develop a new understanding of relationships that could benefit both their species. They created educational programs that would help Veltherans understand the value of emotional and physical connection without abandoning their advanced mental abilities. David shared his knowledge of human psychology and biology, while Queen Zara provided insights into Veltherans' mental connection abilities. Together, they developed a framework that showed how different types of connection could complement each other rather than compete. Your people have achieved something remarkable with mental connection, David told the Royal Council during one of their sessions. But humans have learned that combining mental, emotional, and physical connection creates bonds that are stronger than any single type of connection alone. The response from the Veltherans people was mixed, but largely positive. The younger generation was especially interested in exploring these new possibilities. While some older citizens remained skeptical, Queen Zara understood that change would take time, but she was committed to helping her people discover the fuller experience of connection. She established research centers dedicated to studying emotional and physical bonding. Not to dismiss. It is primitive, but to understand how it could enhance their already advanced civilization. Scientists who had once mocked human experiences now worked to understand how physical touch could create the emotional responses that humans described. Dr. Keth, initially resistant to these changes, eventually became one of the most enthusiastic. Researchers in the new field, I have to admit, she told Queen Zara during one of their meetings, the preliminary results are fascinating. It appears that physical connection activates neural pathways that we had assumed were dormant in our species. As weeks passed, Queen Zara noticed remarkable changes in her people. Those who began experimenting with physical affection reported feeling more emotionally connected to their partners. Couples who had been together for decades discovered new depths in their relationships. Even friendships became warmer and more meaningful as people learned to express care through gentle touch as well as mental connection. David's presence on Velthera Prime became permanent as he took on the role of cultural ambassador and relationship counselor. His work helped bridge the gap between human and Veltheran's understanding, showing both species that there were valuable lessons to be learned from each other. Queen Zara found herself becoming not just a political leader, but a guide for her people's emotional and spiritual growth. She spoke publicly about the importance of remaining open to new experiences and not dismissing other species. Ways of life as inferior simply because they were different. True wisdom, she told her people during a planetary address, comes from understanding that there are many paths to fulfillment and connection. We have spent so long focused on being superior that we forgot the importance of being complete. Transformation of Veltheran society was gradual but profound. They began to appreciate art and music in new ways, understanding how beauty could touch the heart as well as the mind. They developed new forms of expression that combined their mental abilities with emotional and physical awareness. Most importantly, they learned that evolution was not about leaving behind all aspects of their nature, but about integrating all parts of themselves into a more complete and fulfilling way of life. The kiss that had awakened Queen Zara became the catalyst for an entire civilization to discover new depths of connection and meaning. As Queen Zara stood in her garden one evening, watching the sunset with David beside her, she reflected on how much had changed since that first day when she had dismissed human experiences as impossible myths. Now she understood that the real myth had been the belief that any species could be truly advanced while ignoring fundamental aspects of connection and love. The universe, she realized, was far more beautiful and complex than she had ever imagined, and she was grateful for the human who had opened her eyes to its infinite possibilities.